We've been seeing this week the first signs of canvassers stumbling around the by-election centres of Stoke Central and Copeland. That's where Labour will hear a meaningful verdict on their recent performance. The Shadow Foreign Secretary, Emily Thornberry, joins me now. Emily Thornberry, 47 Labour MPs, including 10 frontbenchers, voted against the whip or didn't support the whip this week. Were they right to do so? You have a Remain constituency.
Listen, I know your narrative is, as you said at the top of the programme, that we are hopelessly divided. I really don't think that is fair. Let me say why. The Labour Party is a national party and we represent the nation. And the nation is divided on this and it is very difficult. And many MPs representing majority Remain constituencies have this very difficult balancing act between do I represent my constituency or do I represent the nation? Labour as a national party have a clear view. We have been given our instructions. We lost the referendum. We fought to stay in Europe, but the public have spoken, and so we do as we're told. But the important thing now is not to give Theresa May a blank cheque. We have to make sure we get the right deal for the country.
Absolutely, and I want to come on to that. But it sounds as if you're saying that you understand the motives of those Labour MPs who voted with their conscience against triggering Article 50 and will carry on doing so. Should they therefore not perhaps be disciplined, given that they are, you said the country's split and they are standing with their constituents, as is their right, and perhaps some would say their duty?
It's not I'm afraid it's not my job to work out what should happen. I understand completely, and as is well known, my constituents voted overwhelmingly to remain in the UK. But I am a national politician, Labour is a national party, and we offer some hope. You say we're hopelessly divided. I say we offer some hope in terms of the way in which we thoughtfully work our way through this and we tread a path through it so that we bring the country with us. And that has to be on the basis of making sure that we have a number of guarantees from Theresa May and we make sure that we have a number of achievements. So making sure we have proper access to the single market. I'm going to come on to all of this, I promise. But just on this, whether you're split or not, it sounds almost as if on this issue collective responsibility has to be put to one side because of the nature of the split in the country. No. The Labour Party is a national party and we have a nationally and collectively agreed position on this, and that is what we're going to do. We are not going to frustrate Brexit. We need to make sure we get the best deal.
So let's come on to the Shadow Home Secretary. Have you spoken to Diane Abbott since she didn't vote?
No, I haven't, no.
A lot of people in the party, as you know, are furious about this. They say, yes, you might have had a migraine, we understand that, but we have MPs like Ronnie Campbell coming hundreds of miles with cancer to vote on this matter, really putting themselves through the mill to get there. She had a migraine, she could have stayed in the House of Commons and been counted in, and she didn't. Can you understand why so many of your colleagues are so cross with her?
I don't know the details of this. All I'm told is that she was ill. That's all I know.
Right. And you're not going to say any more about it, I can tell.
Well, there's nothing else I can say.
OK, well, let's move on to what you do want to talk about, which is the Labour amendments. Can we just go through some of these?
Yeah.
These are very, very important to the Labour Party. First of all...
And this is the opposition doing its job and holding the government to account and making sure that the government does the right thing.
Absolutely. So let's go through of them. Guaranteeing rights for EU nationals living in the UK. Now, there's an amendment specifically about that, but as we were hearing in the paper review, there is no suggestion, really, that the government are going to deport foreign nationals if things go wrong in the talks. Why is this such an important amendment?
The government may be saying they won't deport, but it's not fair. I've had people coming to my surgeries in tears. I had a meeting of 200 French nationals coming to see me and saying, not from my constituency, but saying they are extremely concerned about their future. They have fallen in love with this country. They've fallen in love with someone from this country. They're setting up businesses here. They put their life down here, and yet they've got to have their life on hold for a number of years whilst Theresa May sorts it out. It's not fair.
This is a basic humanity question.
It's a basic humanity question, but it's also politically. I think it's right to do at this stage to make a gesture. You know, we are falling out with our European neighbours in a way that is not a good place to be if we're about to start negotiations. Surely, as a gesture of good faith, she should be sorting this out unilaterally on behalf of people, you know, people who are living in my constituency now.
Let me move on to the next red line, which is workers' rights, securing workers' rights and tariff-free access to the single market. Do you think that is doable?
I think that we have to have, when we're in negotiations, we have to have at the forefront of our mind making sure that we look after the economy first and foremost. Our biggest trading neighbour is Europe, and so therefore getting as good a deal in terms of being close to the single market. So that does mean she has said that she will be able to get tariff-free, red tape-free access to the single market. We're just holding her to what she says she can do.
And similarly, it's crucial for the Labour Party that you get a vote at the end of the process, as we were discussing earlier on, not simply on the deal, but deal or no deal, whatever happens, the Commons is going to be involved with a proper, meaningful vote at the end of the process.
Yeah, and it's that, and it's also about engaging the Commons throughout the process, or Parliament throughout the process, because when she needs to go to Europe and say, I represent Britain, and in order to do that, she has to bring Parliament with her, because we represent the country. So it's not good enough for her to just go off and say, you know, ta-ra, I'll sort something out, trust me. No, we don't trust you. We want to make sure that we hold you to account throughout it, so that you don't go. I mean, she has said one of her options, as you know, is to break the British economic model. That she has said that's one of the things that she would be prepared to do, and we have to make sure we stop her doing that.
Are these red lines for you?
These are, yes, I mean, we need to make sure that throughout the negotiations we are ensuring that these things happen.
Without this, for you, for the Labour Party, this is a catastrophic process.
No, I think that the difficulty with the negotiation is that it is a question of give and take. It will be a process happening over the next 2 years.
These aren't really red lines.
No. These are things that we need to make sure that we achieve.
So my question is very clear. If you don't get what you achieve, do you vote in favour of Article 50 anyway? Because it's totally illogical if you do.
No, it's not totally illogical. There are going to be negotiations happening in the next week. There are many ways in which the government may be able to react to this that will be positive. So, for example, on one of the amendments that we have put down, they may say, we're not going to support this amendment, but we can give, during a speech, we can give an assurance, we can speak in back channels, we can say, you will get this, we will not go off the rails in relation to workers' rights, or
so the public must take for granted private conversations between you and ministers and assume that that's what's going to happen.
No, we need to make sure that... No, but we also need to have... Personally, I think that it's much better for them to be saying it on the record and to be saying it so that we know what it is that they're committing themselves to, so that we can hold them to account.
Exactly.
That seems to me to be the sort of thing. But there will need to be back channels, private conversations. There are many conversations going on now. We're speaking to government, we're speaking to Tory backbenchers, and we are trying to get a compromise together that will work.
Take the position of somebody like Clive Lewis, very important in the Labour Party and a very clear position. He voted for Article 50 in the first vote, but he says, look, we have these very, very important amendments. We need to change this legislation. We need to change it for workers' rights, tariff-free access to the EU, help for EU citizens and all the rest of it. And if we don't get those, then I'm going to vote against it. That is a totally illogical position. What is wrong with that?
What's wrong with it is that we have said that we will not frustrate Brexit. We have got our instructions from the British people. We are struggling and we are fighting to ensure that we get the best possible deal. And we're doing that by holding the government to account. But we are Democrats and the public have voted for us to leave the European Union. So we cannot frustrate it, but we have to make sure that she does the right thing when she's in Europe.
And you can't stay on the front bench if you don't accept that. So presumably Diane Abbott must vote with the whip to keep her job, the Shadow Home Secretary, next week.
Well, we are in a state of negotiations. I cannot sit here today and tell you which of the amendments will be put before Parliament, which ones will be voted through, where the negotiations will get us. But I can tell you the direction of travel of the Labour Party, which is a clear direction. This is where we're trying to go as a national party to make sure the government does the right thing.
At the end of the process, whatever happens to those amendments, you're going to vote in favour of Article 50. Even if you've lost on every single issue, you'll still vote in favour of Article 50. And you're insisting that somebody like Diane Abbott must vote with you.
It's a fast-moving picture. Let's see what happens. It's not blurred. It's not. I've said a number of times what our principles are and how we're trying to get them and how we are unfortunately, we're not the government, but we are doing our utmost to hold the government to account as an opposition, right?
But if it's not blurred, at least you can say that Diane Abbott must vote with the whip to keep her position as Shadow Home Secretary next week.
The whip will be decided next week. Let's see what happens in relation to the amendments. We have a Shadow Cabinet meeting next week. It will be for the Chief Whip and the leader to decide what the whip is, on the various amendments, which amendments we're pushing, which amendments we're not, and what the final vote will be. But we will not, and most important, the public actually are more interested, I think, in which amendment, blah, 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 is will we frustrate Brexit? No, we won't. Will we be fighting to get the best deal? Yes, we will.
But not very successfully. If you haven't got real red lines, you haven't got real leverage, you haven't got real red lines, you're going to vote for it come what not may. That's the problem that you've got.
Look at the successes we've already had. You know, she didn't want to have a vote before Parliament at all. She didn't want to have a white paper.
That was decided in the courts.
And she didn't want to have a white paper. We've had a white paper. You know, we think that
that was the courts, not the Labour Party.
The white paper was not the courts. The white paper was us demanding it and campaigning for it, and we've actually got them to put. They didn't even want to put in black and white
Tory MPs
what
as well.
Yes, of course, and that's obviously we're in a minority. We're the opposition, so we have to do it through negotiations with opposition MPs too. That's the difficulty that we're in. We cannot simply get up and demand something and get it. We have to work with others. We have to campaign for it, and slowly, we are achieving the things that we need. We can't deliver it straight away.
We'll keep watching very carefully. For now, Emily Thornberry, thank you very much indeed.